Okay, so this is going to be an unscripted video about my overall relationship with music, concluding at the point that I'm at now, which is very different than it's been. You'll notice a tiny little head. I've got a little wiggly guy. This might have a lot of editing because this is a wiggly little guy. Okay, part one, prehistory. So from very early on in my life until the point where I started music, so like coming of cognizant age up until being a teenager, right? I listened to a lot of music. I was not as obsessive as some people, but like, for example, plenty of memories in school, no friends, so I would just hide my Discman in my coat and put on the headphones, and at recess at school, listen to music the entire recess period. That's all I would do, because I didn't have friends and that was my escape. You'll notice that theme a lot. Music as an escape in my life. So that was like age whenever you start doing things independently, all the way up till about age 13-ish. That's prehistory. All it really was I was pretty obsessive about music. I memorized every song that I listened to. I just listened to albums start to finish on repeat as a way to escape from childhood trauma, essentially, what I now recognize as traumatic things in my childhood. All right. Part two, history, I guess. Once I started actually learning music in the form of drums, so music, percussionists aren't musicians, it was equally obsessive. So when I began taking drums seriously, it was around age 13, and I became obsessive. By grade 11, 12-ish, when I had spare periods, I would line them up so that my spare period was right beside my lunch, so I'd have an extended lunch, and then I would take my mom's vehicle home. I live in a different town than my school was. Home just to practice drums for that hour and a half or whatever, and then drive back to school like every day. And then I would come home after school and I would practice drums. We had band practice twice a week. I would practice usually before or after or both. I was obsessive about playing drums, and it was the only thing I knew. I tried playing guitar, it didn't really click, but to the extent that I was a drummer, I was the most of a drummer as I could be. I would just sit down, I would jam out anything from Cradle of Filth and Dimmu Borgir to 303 and Hannah Montana. Like, I would just literally put on music and I would just play along, and that was my evening. It was obsessive. 6 hours a day usually, if I could. And yeah, I was actually I don't really have any good recordings, but I was actually pretty decent at drums. History period. Again, this is unscripted. Part three, I don't have a clever title for that. I guess part three would be the main the main course, the main event. So if part two goes from about age 13 when I started playing drums, it ends at about age 19, 20, around age 20 when I started learning music theory. I had never learned any melodic music theory. I was not particularly good at drums, or particularly good at guitar or writing or anything. It was just drums until I started taking piano/music theory lessons. I sucked at piano. I still suck at piano, but even my teacher was like, you need to continue with theory. You've got a knack for theory. And I'm like, yeah, I love theory. So around age 20, I started learning music theory. I started composing orchestral music because that's what I wanted to do. And that, if anything, became even more obsessive. Of course, now I'm in my 20s, so I'm trying to maintain a relationship, which a lot of the time suffered because I would rather do music theory than be a human being. That is also a running theme. But the same thing was still true. I was still dealing with trauma, and I was still using music as an escape. So I was just as obsessive because of bonk. What's up? wiggly man. So at this point, I'm still playing drums, but not nearly as much because I'm much more interested in music theory and composition. I'm as obsessive, if not more so, because I'm still not actually dealing with emotional things. I'm just using music as an escape. It affects all of my relationships. I basically only maintain friendships if they have to do with music, and romantic relationships are basically second priority to working on music. You sound like you're faking. This is when I start what became the Design Abstract, as well as a number of other bands. Eventually I go to university for music theory and composition. Ultimately I stop sleeping, and I'm drinking. I had never calculated how many cups of coffee it was. I got sick. I got really sick, and I dropped out of school around the time that I was about halfway through writing Technotheism, and I was not sleeping at that point. I was obsessive, like actually obsessive. I was manic. I would go to bed usually at 10 a.m. after having several coffees, and then wake up at maybe 3 p.m. Most days. And then, of course, I dropped out of school. I came back here. I started Abstracted Records, the recording studio, and I kept right on going. At this point, I'd been through several relationships, all that ended directly or indirectly because of my obsession with music. Still an escape. I would use it to deal with breakups and to understand them and relate to them. Meanwhile, the reason they happened was because I was so obsessed with music, among other things, obviously. But and that continued. When COVID hit, it just multiplied. When lockdown happened and I didn't have to go to work, that was when albums just came rain. I'm not going to show him, but this little guy is really proud of himself because he figured out the end record button like a little shitter. So COVID. COVID's kind of part 3.5 because it was kind of the peak of my output. Like, we were releasing albums every week. At this point, I had met Logan, and he, you know, it's not his fault. He's an enabler, but he offset so much of the guitar production stuff that I couldn't do and stuff that took me a really long time, that having him just be able to shit at amazing guitar parts just made everything so much quicker. So yeah, Technotheism, Metamtechnosis, a good chunk of Transhuman Ascendant, not to mention Disciples of the Void, Acolytes of Entropy, the Long Earth Theory stuff, Swamp Ass and the Meat Sweats. I was still doing for the kids stuff back then, as well as all my own stuff, Project Technophage, Voyicide. I'm missing something, I'm sure. But so much of that shit came out after COVID hit, just because I worked like full time, minimum 8 hours a day, closer to 16 sometimes. Obsessive and not dealing with anything of real life. I would eat, but I would eat like absolute trash just so that I had fuel to keep learning and practicing. Which brings us to now, part 4. Not to say that I hadn't ever been introspective. I'd been to a lot of therapy throughout my life. I mean, I can be blatant and say, I forget how old I was when I attempted to take my own life, failed, wrote a couple albums about it. That's what catharsis is about. It's literally about attempted suicide. So, you know, again, I was still using music to cope, though I was going to therapy quite a lot. And so I did know how to look at myself and see what was going on. I wasn't like a completely hopeless person, but I just knew outright that music was more important. Yeah, I should say the lovely human being that I had my child with, we did break up because of my music obsession, and then I realized what I was missing and that I needed to chill out. What are you doing? But even still, that didn't really slow me down that much. I still did it every single fucking day at every opportunity, so I need to tend to this man. Okay, the little man is with his mom. Okay, so again, unscripted, so I'm not too sure. I'm gonna kind of walk my way around explaining this. I don't owe anyone details about my personal life, which is why I never put my name on my music. So really, I can choose how much information I divulge. So I'm just going to have to kind of work through that. So sufficient to say, recently I intentionally underwent some life changes. Not because I had a kid. I did have a kid. That did change things. This would have happened anyway. But I've been being a lot more mindful and aware of how things affect me. And the reason that the angle of this video is my relationship to music is because that relationship has changed. If I deal with my emotional stuff and my hang-ups and being a normal human being, I don't need to obsess over music. I don't need to be manic and stay up, not being able to sleep because of whatever stupid change needs to happen, because I'm just going to be a functioning normal human being now. That's the goal anyway. Anyway, so music, therefore, after all of these years, is no longer a tool for coping or escaping, I should say. Music is no longer a tool for escaping. Another interesting thing that I've noticed, because lately I have stopped listening to metal. It's a choice. It's just stopped serving me the same way as it used to. I've explained this before, but you know, when you don't deal with emotions and everything kind of builds up in your head and everything in your brain is all noisy and all fucked up, then you listen to loud, aggressive fucking music because it cuts right to your soul. And I'm here right now. I'm present. I'm not zoned out. Whatever I'm listening to, I'm absorbed in, and it doesn't need to be loud and abrasive. Therefore, I've been exploring music that I prefer to listen to when I'm actually fully engaged. Yeah, and weirdly enough, it's like electronic music. I actually don't like listening to anything with guitars, like anything rockish. If I want to hear electric guitars, I still just want to listen to death metal, but it's very rare. Or more accurately, black metal, I guess, melodic death metal. But in my journey through all this, one interesting thing that I've noticed, and I might repost just this excerpt on Instagram because I'm really curious about it, if anyone else feels this way. I've noticed when I hear music that I really like, this is indirect, this is something I've dug into understanding, I feel like I need to own it. It's not enough just to hear it and enjoy it. I need to take it, I need to understand it, and I need to implement it in my own music. I need to create my own version of it. I need a part of that beauty, a part of that brilliance to be dissected and released as my own music. And interestingly, it's not just metal, because recently all I've been listening to is goth, trap, and witch house. That's it. And the new Voicide, it stopped being metal, and it's that, but it's the same fucking shit where it's like, I'm hearing this album that I absolutely adore, and it's not enough for me to just listen to it and enjoy it. I have to have it. I need to recreate it. I need to break it down to its components and make it my own. And I've got to stop doing that because it's stupid. I can't just enjoy it. And so the thing is, I'm posting this as though it's at the end of my journey, but it's not. I just know what my goal is now, and it's to not be like that. However, the really interesting thing that I've been working towards admitting to myself is that after over a decade of obsessively doing this music, I don't enjoy it. Like, I've never been ironic about I hate music. Like, I get that it's like facetious because all I do with my life is music, and that's the joke, but it's not a joke, and it has never been, and I've explained why I hate it. I'm not going to get into, you know, all like the personal life stuff and how I wanted to do science and I can't do math because I've got dyscalculia and all that shit. But at a base level, I am almost never making music because I enjoy it. that's just never the reason. And even though I've cut back significantly, I only do music a few hours a week, but when I do kind of scrape together a bit of time to make my own stuff, it has been like Witch House, which sounds cool, but the motivation there is still rotten. It's still gross because it's still me needing to own something, to claim it because I like it so much. And it doesn't even need to be a specific subgenre of metal, because of course it used to be like, you can see right there, the good old Dimmu Borgir, right? I fucking love Dimmu Borgir, but so much of what I've done is because I wanted that sound. I wanted to own it. I wanted symphonic metal, and everything that I did needed to be symphonic like them, because I needed a piece of that brilliance and that genius, and I needed to own it. And you can take away the metal, and apparently I'm still like that, and I don't like that I'm like that. It's my current challenge. But this past week, and what brought me to explore all of this and kind of accumulate it into a video, is the fact that I have realized I can say, like, with a straight face, not even I hate music, LOL, ironic, not ironic, but like, I did it for over a decade and I no longer enjoy doing it, is really what it comes down to. I've never really enjoyed playing instruments, so I'm like, okay, I'll make electronic music, but I've realized my motivations for that are kind of garbage. So I'm not gonna say I'm stopping, because when I think of all the unfinished projects, I think of the new Interfolus, like that content, the material kind of slaps, and like same with the new project Technophage stuff. Like, I've got an album together, but it's a job, it's a chore. I'm not really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it being done, but I'm not looking forward to the process anymore, because I don't need to escape my life. I would rather just sit and read and hang out with my wife, my kid. I would literally rather just sit in the sun and do nothing than work on these projects. And that's a problem, because I'm not trying to escape what's in my mind anymore. I'm chill, I'm zen, man. That compulsion is gone. That obsessiveness is not there. And so I'm realizing anything that I'm finishing now, I'm forcing myself to do it. And some things are more priority than others. Like Design Abstract has a fan base, and the new material is really awesome. I don't have that visceral, oh fuck yeah, this has to be done feeling that I always have. I know it's good and it's different, but I don't have a compulsion to finish it, which is why it's just been sitting. That, and we're doing the Lore Master album first. So I joked hashtag clickbait, I'm quitting music, LOL, and like, I'm not going to delude myself into thinking that that's the case. However, I have, after weeks of churning through how I'm actually feeling as a human being, begun to come to terms. Can you hear that? Can you hear the angry man? Begun to come to terms with the fact that I actually do not enjoy this. I enjoy the idea of it being out. I enjoy the idea of adding to my discography, but not that much. Not enough to ruin my life over. In fact, most of the time, not even enough to interrupt my life over. There's been, I think, 2 nights in the past 3 months that I have been unable to sleep because of a music thing, and that I've got up and lost sleep over it. And that used to be almost every night. This is getting better. It's healing. And that is my current relationship to music, because it has changed a lot. And so I'm not really too sure what the future is. I'm obviously going to do even less music than I projected, because I've realized where that motivation was coming from. This channel, I don't know, it almost seems like it's going to turn into a fucking vlog channel. Do you see this? Do you see this? What the fuck is that? Yeah, I don't know. Could be a vlog. I don't care. I'm just going to do stuff that I like. But I'm going to make sure that my motivations are sound. And it sucks because the traps, like witch house trap stuff that I've been doing, like, I actually really like it. It kind of slaps really hard. But I would feel wrong knowing that I'm releasing it just because I want to take the existing artists that I admire and own it. You can't own beauty, right? You can't dissect beauty. It stops being beautiful. There's some quote about, I don't cite my quotes. So yeah, that's the thing, is like when the main projects, like when like normal voicide, like not trap voicide, like when there's no inspiration for that, when I have no actual drive to finish a design abstract album, like it'll get done, but like I don't have that compulsion. Yeah, it's that. And then the more selfish, petty reason that it's like, it's kind of me just like being, this is like the bonus reason. And it's more just me being self-pitying, but it's like, really, if I just actually straight up gave up music, if I literally never released anything again, how many people are really gonna notice? Like, not that many. I appreciate the people who do. I think there's a handful of diehard fans that would actually be upset, and then there's a whole bunch of people who like it but wouldn't notice it if it was gone. And that's what it comes down to. Not that that's the reason that I do it or don't do it. If I had way more fans, or if I had way less fans, I would still be saying all the shit that I'm saying, but it does come into my mind, right? That it's like, I've worked for over 10 years at this, and well, this ties into the last video where it's like, part of me can't not be like, look at somebody who came up in 2022 and has millions of followers, and it's like, great, and why am I doing this? Combined with the fact that I'm not good at any instruments, and then combined with the fact that when I'm not doing this as an obsessive escape from reality, that I don't actually enjoy it. And the answer is I'm not. That's it. I'm doing other stuff. Not even productivity stuff. I'm not working on the book. I mean, I am, but not really. I'm not doing other creative things. I'm simply just not trying to escape my life anymore. And that's my relationship to music now. And what I'm going to work on is just listening to albums that I like, regardless of genre, and just enjoy them and not try to recreate them and not try to own their beauty. That's where I'm at. It's a change. So don't expect much. We'll see. At this point, it's iffy if the new Interface album comes out. I'm sure the Design Abstract album will. I'm not sure about after that. We'll see. But that's where we're at. If you made it all the way through, thank you for listening. Yeah, and I'm curious if other people have that thing, the thing that I was saying about listening to something and needing to own it and not just being able to enjoy it, or if it's just me and I'm a freak. I'll maybe get to asking that on Instagram too. Yeah,